Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Ariel Halpern. I'm the director of 14Y Cella. Thank you for coming to Quieting the Silence. If you don't know exactly what this Quieting the Silence, which is a program of JFNA Be Well, is a platform from community members to come together and share their lived experience with mental health challenges. The Blue Dove Foundation, which created the program, has consistently found that hearing personal stories of struggles, loss, and resilience directly from those living through them help foster new perspectives, personal connections, ideas, and hope. We hope this shows others that they are not alone and begins to eliminate the shame and stigma many feel when it comes to mental illness and addiction. It isn't easy to speak out publicly, and some choose to do so anonymously. Telling their stories is a start, and the more we talk about these issues, the more we normalize the conversation around addiction and recovery. The three organizations that have co-sponsored this program, the first one is JAX. JAX is a program of the Jewish Board. It is a Jewish mutual aid recovery support network that strengthens individuals and families impacted by addiction. Rooted in 12-step principles in Jewish spiritual life, Jewish alcoholics and chemically dependent persons and significant others, JAX, seeks to reduce stigma about addiction in the Jewish community, expand access to culturally responsive addiction and recovery services, and serve as a central hub within the Jewish recovery ecosystem. Sela, which is the program I direct, is a Jewish spiritual community at the 14th Street Y in New York City for people in addiction and recovery and for those who love them. Sela, a Hebrew word often understood as pause or reflection, creates space for connection, spirituality, authenticity, and healing within Jewish life. Through Shabbat gatherings, daily support groups, workshops, holiday programs, and one-on-one support, Sela helps people stay grounded in recovery while building meaningful relationships and a sense of belonging. Finally, Be Well, which is the person who brought us all together, is the mental health initiative of the Jewish Federations of North America, JFNA, in partnership with the Network of Jewish Human Services Agency. It's called the Network. Be Well draws on Jewish wisdom and community together with evidence-based and clinically informed practices to promote well-being, decrease stigma, and increase resilience. Be Well equips and catalyzes the Jewish community to respond to the growing mental health crisis. I'm now going to introduce our first speaker, Rabbi Yali Suzlansky. Rabbi Yali is an award-winning educator, trauma-informed emotion specialist, and director of youth and family engagement at the Hebrew Institute of Riverdale, where she builds programs that help young people and families feel seen, supported, and empowered. She brings emotional wellness and resilience practices to schools and communities nationwide, runs workshops and groups for parents and caregivers in recovery, and is spearheading the Hineni Hub, a new model for Jewish youth engagement. And with that, I'll send it over to Rabbi Yali.
Thank you, Ariel. It's really an honor to be in this space and to be able to give the framing for us tonight. I'd like to start with a moment from the book of Genesis. It's a moment that really I come back to a lot when I think about telling our stories and especially our stories in recovery. And it's the moment where Judah and his brothers are standing before the most powerful man in Egypt. And they don't know it yet, but that man is Joseph, is the brother that they sold into slavery decades earlier. The secret that they have been carrying, the shame that they have been living beside, the story that they have never fully told is all in the room with them. And in this scene, Judah steps forward. In the text, it says, Vaigash elav Yehuda, which means Judah approached him. And then he does something that I find really remarkable. He tells the truth about the family, about the loss that they're carrying, about their father's grief, about the brother who is gone, and about the fear of causing more pain. And he tells the truth about his role in the story and in his role in the selling of Joseph. He stops hiding behind power or strategy, and he speaks from a place that is really painfully human. And he says, here's what happened, and here's what is at stake, and here's what I'm asking for. I mean, he had every reason to stay silent. He was complicit. And he carried that along with shame and years of a story that he had helped shape and bury. His willingness to speak anyway is what breaks the whole family open. It's what makes their repair possible. It's what makes the next scene possible of the brothers hugging and then actually restarting their family lineage together. The word Vaigash, he approached, is actually the same word used elsewhere in the Torah for drawing close. To tell the truth is to draw close to yourself, to others, and to something like healing. And actually, the Vaigash is my bat mitzvah parsha. And I find myself coming back to this moment often in my work, sitting with young people and families who are standing at their own threshold, deciding how to give words to what they're carrying. And tonight, the people that you are about to hear from have chosen to step forward. In Jewish tradition, healing often begins with telling. The Haggadah, which we tell the story of at every Passover, commands us to tell the same story in every generation, which is, my future generation is over here, because the telling is how we stop carrying something alone. So here's what I want to ask of you as listeners tonight. Come with the kind of attention that a story this hard has earned, and to receive someone's story with full presence is itself a sacred act. So the speakers tonight are offering something real to you. Hold it gently and hold it also within yourself.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Yali, for that beautiful framing. And we are so honored to have you with us and to really set the space for us as we begin this evening. And I am Carly Coons. I am the Director of Programming and Resiliency Roundtable at BeWell, which Ariel so beautifully spoke about at the beginning. And I have the honor tonight of introducing our speakers as we go along. So I'm first going to introduce our first speaker tonight, Jeremy Poole, who is one of the co-founders of Sela and serves as the Associate Director of Programs. So Jeremy, I am going to turn it over to you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, Rabbi Yali, for such a beautiful framing. And yeah, let's get uh, real. And that's the only way I know how to share my story. So I don't mean to offend, and I really don't mean to, uh, it's definitely not glorification because I mean, I sit at um, almost 12 years of recovery today. My recovery started August 6, 2014, while I was in a 6x9 cell. And I often say college wasn't for me, but I am a graduate of the hard knocks, and Yale and Penn State were places that I've visited quite frequently because of my addiction. And I always would say I had a PhD until I found a beautiful, loving Jewish community in Los Angeles that loved me till I could love myself. We sometimes you hear addiction, there's like a lot of things that happen, or there's a moment or a marker. I think my moment and marker in life was just being born into a working class family that were struck with, life on life's terms. But as a child, where life on life's terms removed the capacity of love that like I discovered I needed through my healing process. Um, it was very difficult. My life was shaped by my older brother having an injury at 11 years old. So, not being a parent now, like I couldn't even imagine. I have a son about my older brother's age when the injury happened. I couldn't even imagine what my parents were going through. But, in a working class family, after trauma or tragedy happens, there's not a lot of time and space to figure it out, right? What happens in a working class family when tragedy hits, you go to school the next day and everyone goes to work. There's not a lot of space to talk about things. Just left a big void. I also grew up in with the family I needed, not, not the family I got. I always say I didn't ask to be here, but I appreciate the blessings of my family. But my dad is 50 years older than me, and my mom is 21 years. There's this gap in age, and I was raised with a wiser older man. But I didn't really have that like strong male role model. So after my brother's injury, I made myself really small in my household. I'm always been a fixer. My compassion and my love come from watching my mom invite strangers to every one of our Thanksgiving from the time I was 5 until, the time I left the house at 16. But like we would have strangers at our Thanksgiving table every year. It's who my mom is. She believed that nobody should go without. Um, is that what makes me an addict? I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you if all these things made me an addict. I can tell you this, like when I was a child, the thing I didn't say when they asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up, is I didn't say I wanted to struggle with a mental health issue. I didn't say I want to struggle with addiction. I didn't say I want challenges or any of the things that I was faced with. So for me, I recognize like my addiction became a solution, and it was a solution. It's like I was the guy that was trying to kill myself daily to feel alive. And I did that through the substances I used. I wasn't an alcohol guy. I really like the hard stuff was where it was at for me. I didn't really relate to drugs and substances earlier on in my life. I smoked a lot of marijuana, and I guess they say it's an entry, but I don't know if it's an entry or exit. I'm not here to say a substance is a good or bad thing. People get to determine their quality of life, but I know my quality of life when I'm on substances is not good at all. So, the seeking in me, I sought out male attention, a father figure, I guess you could say. Even though I had a dad. And so there was this weird thing that I went through, was seeking. And I'm a person that believes if you seek, you'll find. And I'm also a person who believes that connection is connection and nobody can tell me the difference, right? So if you meet somebody in the darkness, that's connection. If you meet someone in the light, that's connection. And that's what I had to learn through recovery, is that where I meet people is the relationship that we're going to hold with one another. And at that time in my life, with an older brother injured and uh, just a lot of like noise in my head, I was extremely risk engaging, um, God had different plans for me, but I do remember my first God wound too. It was like at that time, my family, where my brother's already injured. He's relearning how to walk after 2 years. He's finally walking again. And we're getting kicked out of our house. And I just remember like watching my mom and dad work hard and just these good people. By all means, my mom should be the addict by the life that she lived. My grandmother and my grandfather are difficult people to say the least. I love them again for who they are and not what they're not, but they are challenging. My grandmother died with her addiction, still plaguing her, and my grandfather's most of the time John. That's what he goes by. I have a hard time respecting him as my mom's father just because the individual he is. But again, I recognize where I sit today that we don't turn to the people. We don't just. I've never met an evil baby, is what I always say, and I don't mean to like, but I've never met an evil baby, right? So it's like knowing that there's this innocence and then life shapes us is what gives me space to love people for who they are again and not what they're not. Uh, as we get into where I went in 15 minutes, I'm trying to say a lot of struggle. My addiction started around the height of my addiction started and when I started getting locked up and going to prison at 18. I was already getting arrested at 11 after my brother, and that criminal justice and that path was something I was well informed with, from 18 until from 11 until 28 years old. I was on some form of probation paperwork or a ward of the state. in some capacity. Um, and that was all part of my addiction and who I thought I was, and just not having the guidance that I needed. I was never offered help either. I was always seen as a problem. I was always looked at as a file. I was never given an opportunity. And that first time I was given an opportunity was I was 24 years old and I was facing a judge. And it was a woman, and I'll never forget. My dad wrote a letter. I got an opportunity to go to a treatment center in Los Angeles called Beit Teshuva, and they wrote a letter. And I'm looking at the judge's sentencing, and the judge said, if you cared half as much as your father did, you'd probably be all right in life. And she sentenced me to prison. 2 weeks later, she brought me back, and that was like the first time that I started to see little glimpses of things and that happened. And she brought me back, gave me opportunity to go to treatment. There was all these rules and things, and if I violated, I was going to go back to prison. And I knew I was going to violate, but something inside me said, just go try something new. The seed of change was planted. I didn't nurture it at that time. I left the treatment center and went back to prison for 5 years. Or 23 when I went there. But I went back to prison for 5 years. I got out at 28 years old, but the seed of change was planted inside me. And from that moment, I knew that there was another path. There was something that was showed within that 6 to 7 months I was at that place. Why I got sentenced, I wrote them a letter and they gave me another opportunity. And at 28 years old, that's coming home. I started my journey of sobriety in prison after a suicide attempt. And, I was just struggling. There was this internal battle. The guy that I could be outside of my cell wasn't the same guy trying to change and think of a different life while I was writing inside my cell. But it was different. I had this soul battle, and I lost at the time. But again, God had bigger plans for me. And a suicide attempt turned to a week of partying turned to a big realization that the one thing I could do before I leave prison is change my addiction. I don't know if I can change everything else about myself, but I know I could change my addiction. So I came home substance free, started my journey while I was in prison. And I came home and I went to Beit Teshuva again. This was a Jewish community that loved me till I could love myself. They provided every resource in the world. I started at a time where there wasn't a lot of these new frameworks. It was just 12-step or treatment. Like that's what they offered you, it's 12-step or treatment. And I started my journey in 12-step. I struggled with it for a little bit, but the framework is something I still believe in and still utilize. The amends process throughout it is still something I love. I wasn't so fond of the community and some of the shame that I feel is associated with when someone stumbles or struggles. It's like sit down, shut up stuff. I just struggle with telling another human being or not having compassion for someone at a time where I feel people need the most compassion in their life. But it's still something I utilize. Therapy helped me. Um, the guy that I am today, I was just sharing about this in group. I lead groups. I help people. I've been certified as a drug and alcohol counselor. I'm finishing up school right now to get my social work degree done and eventually become an LCSW to continue to help and further this work. And if the guy that I was today took a time machine and went and had a conversation with the person that was coming home from prison, I don't think I would have believed this was going to be my life. I never thought that I was going to ever become aware of all the other emotions that I have. I never thought that I could look scary but be sensitive because that's who I am, right? Like, don't let the bald head and tattoos confuse you and the muscles. I'm a big teddy bear, I promise. Like, I have a lot of love in my heart. The thing that I say that really defined my recovery after like learning some frameworks that provided stability is my recovery needed to be for something. I was that darkness in my community before. I was the perpetuance of violence and drug abuse and drug addiction because I was providing that poison to my community. So the only way that made sense for me in my recovery was to do something and to really make sure that I was respecting the thing that I didn't choose. I didn't choose my last name, but I knew I could stop disrespecting it. It comes from a long line of ancestors that walked through so much more pain and struggles than I ever did. So it's like not to minimize because I had to actually get honest and recognize and everything that I went through shaped me. the pain shaped me and shifted. Um, but it allowed me, like, getting honest with myself and learning how to share that pain and not be scared of your opinion of who I am. I can sit and tell anyone I've been to prison. I'm not fearful of your opinion of me today because I love myself, and I've learned the three values that have help me develop a life of meaning and purpose and create an organization where I get to help people. Integrity, love, and compassion became the cornerstone of who I am. I have a compass on my desk, and I believe we all have a why or intrinsic value, right? I believe every human being has intrinsic value. And when I understood what mine was, now I get to show up into the world and I don't have to be confused. I don't have to argue. I don't even get into these beliefs because I know who Jeremy is today. Jeremy is going to leave you with this, and then I'll pass it on because I know we got some other wonderful speakers tonight. Um, my life is only my goal in life for each and every day is to for you people who experience me is to experience me in these three values: integrity, love, and compassion. The way that I get there is I wrote a personal mission statement for myself, and this is how I help and guide people. I believe you should learn your values, but then I believe you should make it a billboard, right? Make your why a billboard. So when you get lost, when you get confused, when you don't know what the next direction is, and I had many of those journeys or those forks in the road in this journey of recovery. I mean, I moved out to New York to follow a startup. It didn't work out, but that's what birthed Sella, right? Like something not working and me having my mission statement, which is with integrity, love, and compassion. I will be an instrument of change in my life and the life of those struggling. I'll continue to be someone the world needs by being the best version of myself daily to help inspire others to be the best version of themselves. And that's what I get to do with my life. And that's it. It's as simple as that for me. I don't overcomplicate it. It's what keeps me present. It's what when I lay my head down at night, that's the bar. I ask myself, where do these values show up? Where was I off? Where do I need to correct it with the next person? But my goal is if I walked out of your life today, if you experience those or you're like, oh yeah, that guy Jeremy, he had integrity. That for me is the match. And even if it's off, I'm okay with that because I know that my guidepost keeps me to living my life in a way that's true to who I am. I'm very clear in how I show up, who I show up. I believe I'm a servant leader that leads with his heart always. And it's nice at this stage of my recovery to be seen and understood as that. Yeah, and with that, like that's just this again, 15 minutes there's a lot. I'm glad I was able to share my story. I haven't shared my story in a while, and I'm happy that I'm not in a space where I need to get back into war stories to feel comfortable with my own recovery anymore. And that's something beautiful. And it's something that I haven't shared in a while. So I appreciate you guys being in a space tonight while I have a clear understanding of the man that I am at this stage of my recovery. But yeah, that's Jeremy pulling his 15-minute nutshell of addiction and recovery. And I know there's some questions and things a little bit later. So if anything comes to mind, I'm always more than willing to continue to um, share with you guys and explore. But thank you guys for listening.
Jeremy, thank you so much. And having heard your story before and getting to hear it again was just so powerful. And the idea that you make your why a billboard, I think, is truly how you live your life. So thank you for sharing with us, and can't wait to hear more from you when we do Q&A. Our next speaker is Arnie Goldstein. So Arnie, I'm going to spotlight you and turn it over to you. I've dropped Arnie's bio in the chat so you can read a little bit more about him, but I'll turn it over to you to speak. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Hey guys, my name is Arnie. I'm a alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. I've been in recovery since 1986 by the grace of God, and I invite God into my life on a daily basis. I want to thank everybody who put this thing together here. Thank you so much. It's always great, especially in our world, to be able to put something together like this just for the awareness purposes. And Jeremy, hearing your story, I greatly appreciate it. Thanks, guy. It takes a lot of courage. It really does. My story is pretty much what Jeremy said. I drank, I drugged, and then I got clean. And I wish it was that simple. It's not. It really is not. There was a lot of insanity as I got through my recovery and to see what this was all about. I was born headed to a disaster. It was really what it boiled down to. My family was nuts. I say this with all the love in the world because I had no other understanding of what was going on. When I look back at the history, my father was probably had some level of mental illness. When you go back through the family history, through the 1900s, the 1920s, and then the 1930s and the war, a lot of people came out, like kind of messed up, and they didn't have an understanding of any of that. And we were Jewish, so there was no such thing as being a Jewish alcoholic. It doesn't exist. You could ask me when I was sitting in rehab, and some guy comes over to me and says, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm a patient." He said, "You can't be because you're Jewish." I go, "Oh, okay. Let me know how that works out." It's another myth that I sent all over the place. My life was crazed, and like I said, I was a disaster waiting to happen. My drinking and my drugging started very, very, very early. Not because it purposely started early, but I had a stomach disorder when I was 3, 4 years old, and they gave me a medication that was 40% alcohol and 5% morphine. And when I actually spoke about this at one point, a pharmacist, I said to me, I wanted, when I was a kid, I wanted more. And they said, they don't prescribe this anymore. And then I found out maybe about 7 or 8 years ago that, yeah, sure, they make that stuff. And I'm going, really? How come they never gave it to me over all those years? But I know why. The thing that really kicked in, even at that early age, is that 3 or 4 things happened to me when they gave me this medication. Number one, I hated the way it smelled. Number two, I hated the way it tasted. Number three, I loved the way it made me feel. And number four, I wanted more. Now, I'm 4 years old. Now, don't ask me what this was all about. Nobody was sitting there telling me, this is what you're going to end up being and doing. But would love the way it made me feel. And when I was 11 years old and I was at synagogue on a Saturday morning, and the old men are sitting there and said, "Here, make a l'chaim, make a l'chaim, make a l'chaim." I go, "Sure, no problem." And I brought the alcohol, that little cup, that little cup, the one that the doctor gives you in the office to pee in because I don't know who drinks out of a cup like that anymore. Um, uh, so I brought it up to my lips, and I hated the smell. I hated the way it made me feel. I hated the taste, and something else happened that day. And all of a sudden, I became taller. I became better looking. I became more handsome. I became all the stuff that goes with it. And my father became a nice guy that day. And don't ask me, how it all fits in together. I couldn't tell you. But what hit me that day, and as I'm sitting here right now and just relating the story, is that that's what made me determine that this is how people get through their lives. They get through their lives by picking something up to make them feel better. And when I look at the history of what alcoholism is all about, I'm the guy. I'm the guy that when I picked up, strange things happened to me that didn't happen to probably 85 to 90% of the population. That when I pick up stuff just happens. Long story, like long story short, I was 14 years old. I was at a holiday, a Purim holiday get together. And my rabbi said to me, "Have a drink." And I had a drink, and I already had another drink, and I had another drink, and I already had another drink. And I was the guy that ended up under the table. And I was the guy, throwing my guts up. And I thought this was funny. I thought this was the greatest thing in the world, right? Not everybody else thought like that. And that was really the beginning of a quite many year, journey that got me to the point. And obviously, I'm cutting a lot of this stuff off. I grew up. I didn't like the way I felt, and everybody else. Everybody else around me always seemed to be better, and I was the nerd. No matter what I did, that's the way I felt. I didn't all the stuff that goes with it. And finally, at some point, um, alcohol and drugs. I was afraid of drugs in the beginning, but alcohol became my go-to. It was my solution for life. I didn't have the courage to live my life. It's easy to say now. That's not the way I felt when I was doing it. I was always full of fear and anxiety that nobody knew how to deal with. In my world, I was part of a yeshiva world. The idea was stick your head in the Talmud and you're going to be fine. Well, didn't quite work like that. That definitely didn't work quite like that for me. It took me another, I don't know how many years, probably until I was 32, 33 years old, and through a lot of turmoil, a lot of anger, a lot of destructiveness, a lot of financial instability, relationship troubles. I don't have to tell you, you got anybody who's been through anything, and you guys get the idea of it. And then the day came when I looked in the mirror and I wanted to die. All these great feelings, like this is so good for me and it was so much fun. The day came that I looked in the mirror and I said I wanted to die. And only by the grace of God, okay, and a power that I cannot explain to you to this day, stuff began to happen in my life that totally changed my life. I got into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And by the way, from the first time I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous till I got totally clean and sober was 5 years. I was not one of those guys who walked in and said, okay, everything's fine. No, very far from it. I didn't believe anything that anybody in the room said. I didn't think it was true. I didn't think that it worked, right? None of this. And of course, we're not even going to go into all the character traits that went with it, the dishonesty and the lie, all that stuff, because I didn't even want to believe anything anybody had to say. But slowly, by the grace of God, something in me shifted and I began to hear what you guys had to say. Part of it had to do with me going to meetings. Part of it had to do with getting a sponsor. Part of it had to do with, and I wasn't even listening to rabbis, by the way. Far from it. Not me. I still have a problem with that, but that's a different issue. And I did have a rabbi, and at one point he said to me, he said, Arnie, he said, I don't know what to do for you anymore. At which point, if anybody who knows the rabbi, Abraham Twersky, came into my life, and he's the one that changed. Literally, I was clean already, but he really, confirmed my need, okay, to stay in program. And that's what he always said to me: go to meetings. What do you think? Go to meetings. I'm miserable. I'm restless. I'm discontent. All this other stuff. I'm prone to emotional highs and lows. Go to meetings. Go to meetings. Go to meetings. So the resources that I really came from Rabbi Twersky, and the resources came. I got involved with Jax very early in my recovery, and I had a group of people around me. We all got clean and sober together, and I still got guys that are now 40 plus years that we still talk to each other on a regular basis. And being able to have the courage, literally the courage, when I didn't have the courage to look at the things that were going on in my life. That was the stuff that got me out there, that kept me out there in those days drinking, because again, I didn't have any other solution in my life besides picking up a drink. I will tell you that my life is totally, it's totally different. Well, I'm alive. That's the number one. That's on top of the list. But my kids talk to me. Okay, none of my grandchildren have seen me pick up a drink ever. Even though I have one of my grandkids who keeps saying to me, he says, Zadie, why don't you have a drink? I says, no, you don't want to see that happen. And my kids will stand there while, when all the kids, everybody's together, they're going to say, no, you do not want to see him pick up a drink. Because I don't know where I'm going to end up. I really don't know where I'm going to end up. I have grandkids today. I have great grandkids today, and none of them have seen me drink. So I guess the shorter of the long story is that I was the guy that was there. I was the guy that didn't believe anything anybody had to say. I'm the guy who ended up doing all the things, and it's very. I'm not even telling you the stuff that goes on behind the stuff that went on of where I ended up and with the people who I ended up with and the people who I ended up hanging out with. That today I wouldn't even. You're not a part of my life. No, thank you. And how somehow God stuck his 2 cents in my life. This changed my life. I do a tremendous amount of work. I do a tremendous amount of service for people. My biggest strength in this world is doing for others and not looking for anything in return. I live a life of honesty and down to the penny. Literally, somebody gave me 12 cents that wasn't mine. And I turned around and here, it's not mine. Please take it. I don't want it. I do not want it. I do a lot of service for people. I just, have sponsees. I have, I, I have, I had to fire a couple of guys because it became too much. So it's really about reaching out. My life, there's a saying that my life is beyond my wildest dreams. My wildest dreams when I first came in was being able to get a cup of coffee up to my lips and not spill it all over the place. My wildest dreams was being able to not use on a day-to-day basis. And 40 plus years later, it's way beyond all of that. And I have the gift of being able to give it away without looking for anything in return. That's all I want. I have the gift that I get to sit down at night and go through my daily inventory of what I did today and say, okay, was I honest today? Did I do something for somebody else and not look for anything in return? Am I the same? Did I do something yesterday that causes me to stay locked into some of my character defects? And but for the grace of God, on a day-to-day basis, I get to live my life in a way that I never expected it to happen. So when I ask you guys, thank you, and I appreciate you all of you being here, having the courage to be here and being open-minded to the idea that there's a different way. There is a different way. I know it for myself that there's a different way. My brother didn't make it. My brother died. He was 37 years old because for one drink too many, it wasn't a drink, one drug too many in his system. He's no longer here. I've watched my parents go through, my parents are divorced, but watch my mom go through what it is to have to live through all this stuff. And then I get to sit here and I get to, look at the gratitude that I have literally on a day-to-day basis because I keep a gratitude list. I don't just think about it. I don't talk about it. I write down on a day-to-day basis what I am grateful for. And I have a group of people that do the same thing. And it's actually absolutely remarkable. So thanks again, guys, for letting me be here. Anything I could do at any time, feel free to reach out. I know Carly and Beth have my information. You're more than welcome to call me anytime you want. So thank you so much.
Arnie, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I think something that really resonated is how important those connections have been for you, right? With your rabbi, with the people who you met in AA, with individuals, with communities. And I think that is so beautiful. And thank you for sharing that story in this new space of connections tonight. Look forward to hearing more from you when we transition over to the Q&A. And I am happy to introduce our third and final speaker for tonight, Chaya Cole. And I will put Chaya's bio in the chat so you can read more about her. But Chaya, over to you.
Thank you. And thank you for asking me to be here. And it's a little disconcerting because when you're speaking and you're on the spotlight, you get to look at yourself. Right. So it's just a little bit disconcerting. So as I usually say when I go to a JAX meeting, hi, my name is Chaya and I'm a grateful member of JAX. When I go to a meeting that is a 12-step meeting, not connected to JAX, hi, my name is Chaya and I'm a grateful member of Al-Anon. Al-Anon is for those people who are friends and family of addicts and alcoholics, whether or not they are in recovery. And my brother was my qualifier. I say was, he passed away this year. But this is going back a long time. I had heard about JAX and I had heard about 12-step recovery because I worked in a school where they had people from JAX come and speak each year to the 12th grade and let them know about addiction and that there are 12-step programs and that there is help out there, and they would provide them with resources and so on. And little did I realize was that, I was one of the teachers of the 12th graders, and so I often was in on their presentations, and little did I realize that I would need that information for me personally. My brother was not looking well. He was acting erratically. He was married, he had a job, and something was not right, and he was losing a lot of weight. And one day, my father called me, and it made sense that he called me because I had always been the helper and the fixer and the girl who wants to get it right. And my brother was always the cut up, and he didn't do as well in school, and he would get into little bits of trouble, nothing terrible. And we are both, grown ups. And my father is calling me and telling me, well, your brother is a very sick man. And I want to talk to you about it. And can you come over to the house? And when I got there, he started again, sort of hedging. He didn't quite know how to say what he wanted to say. And I said to him, well, do we have a diagnosis? Do you want to talk to a doctor? And my father all of a sudden blurted out, your brother is a drug addict. What are you going to do about it? And I actually knew what I was going to do about it because I had heard from people in program, not because I was in program. And I went to the phone and I called someone who I had met through those Jack speakers. And I explained that I had just discovered that my brother was a drug addict and I don't know what to do next. And that person came and spoke to me and then made a 12-step visit to my brother at his home with my brother's knowledge. And my brother said, oh yeah, I'll talk to him. I'll listen to him. And it was two guys actually who were in recovery, and they took my brother to his first 12-step meeting. My brother did not get clean right away, but at some point, it was brought to my attention that there was going to be a Jack's retreat and I should come. And I was like, me? Like, what do I'm not the addict, I'm not the alcoholic. And I told my brother about it, and my brother said, well, if you're not going, I'm not going. And of course, me, the good, significant other who's going to be the fixer, I have to go. And what I learned there is that this is a family disease and we all are sick. And I had to be aware of not being someone who is helping the addict or alcoholic to stay in the disease, right? So that's part of what I had to learn about. But I also learned a lot about myself. I learned about being the adult child of an alcoholic who didn't drink all the time, but had all of the alcoholisms, the isms. My dad was very much dry drunk. I learned that I was married to someone. I knew he got angry all the time and he was treating me inappropriately. I didn't understand why. I thought it was all my fault. And I began to learn that I was a person of value, that the times that I felt like killing myself, the only thing, by the way, that kept me from killing myself was that I had 3 young children. And I thought, oh my God, if I'm dead, their father is going to raise them and he's going to abuse them. I can't do that. And I tell you these things because that was part of, and trying to be there for my brother was also difficult because I was living in a community very close-knit, a religious, I grew up in an Orthodox home and went to Jewish day school and was still sort of part of the community, even though I had moved a little bit away from some of their religiosity and stuff like that. But I was afraid, oh my God, who's going to find out? How do I keep this quiet? What's going to happen? Will my children get bullied in school if they find out that my brother's a drug addict, that I'm married to a whatever? And coming to program and learning about the 12 steps and learning about doing it one day at a time and reading Rabbi Twersky's books really helped me. And then I got involved. So my very first meeting I ever went to was at a Jack's retreat, and that was 1992. I didn't really start going to 12-step meetings on a regular basis till 1995. And so my sobriety date is 30 years. And I'm not going to say that there haven't been days where I just was ready to, like, I don't want to have to be the adult in the room. It's tough. It's tough to focus on myself and say the right thing and know I can't fix. I didn't cause it. I didn't create it, right? I'm not going to be able to fix this. But I do have to take care of myself. And being connected to program gave me an opportunity to learn language that I can use in my everyday life with my students. I'm in education, I'm a teacher. Most important, it gave me a view of how I need to deal with my son, who was an at-risk teen, to make sure that he didn't become like his dad or become like his uncle. And if you had told me when my son was 15 that someday he would actually go to college, go to rabbinic school, and be the rabbi of a congregation, I would have asked you what you were smoking, because I was hoping that he'd come home and do his homework at the end of the day when he was in high school and maybe graduate. And I was worried about what I was finding in the pockets of his pants when I went to throw them into the wash, and who he was hanging out with. But I learned how to talk to people about it. And what really helped me most was doing service. You know, it was mentioned by the other two speakers, getting involved and helping others and being there for others in whatever ways are healthy for myself and for them has really kept me focused on recovery. I got involved with JACS. You know, early on, I was just coming and being at some of their events, but at some point, someone approached me and said, "We really could use your help with." And I realized, because at that point, it was like, my higher power thinks this is a good road for my recovery. I'm going to embrace it just for this week. I'll do whatever they're asking me to do this week. And that became this month and this year and so on. And here I am, many years later, still doing service in 12-step, mostly through JACS, still reading recovery literature, still going to at least one meeting a week, and still remembering every morning. I'm thankful. When I open my eyes, you know, for a while I stopped praying. I was angry at God. Why were all these terrible things happening to me? God and I have conversations all the time. Sometimes I meet people and they speak to me, and they're bringing the message of God straight to me. And sometimes I just have to sit in the quiet and listen, and God is responding to me, or the things that I go. And somebody mentioned about gratitude. I wear this every single day. I don't have a tattoo, but this does not leave my wrist. And I have a backup, because once this broke and I couldn't find all the, you know, so now I've got, because I have to have grateful right there with me. And every time that something happens that upsets me a little, I can look at it and say, okay, what are you grateful for? And I'm on the WhatsApp chat that JACS has, and I read what other people are writing on their gratitude lists. And once in a while I will post, but it reminds me there are the little things in my life I should be grateful for. And there are the people in my life who are helping me to do the right thing one day at a time. Because when I do something that is harmful to me, it has a ripple effect. It's not just me, it's also the people around me. I read something in Living Each Day by Rabbi Twersky, where he talks about how it's very, the balance in the universe. It is, it's precarious, and I have a part in that. And when I don't do the one right thing for that moment, I don't know who it is going to affect. But when I do the right thing, it could help the universe come back to where exactly it needs to be. So I thank you very much for letting me share. And I hope that something I said may have in some way put that little idea or that seed inside of you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Chaya. And also thank you to all of our speakers, Arnie and Jeremy, as well as Chaya. I mean, I've not heard Chaya or Arnie speak. I've heard part of Jeremy's before, and I'm just noticing that telling these stories of individuals, no one is alike, and yet there's these values and similarities that are coming up, and it's really moving to hear them. This is going to be the Q&A portion of the program. If anyone has any questions, they can put them in the chat, and we'll direct them to the right person, or if they're anybody to anyone as well. Just while people are thinking about questions, I have one of my own, and this is for all three of you to answer or to think about. You all mentioned, I was curious, you all mentioned, and Jeremy had a phrase, the seed of change was planted, and that sort of stuck with me. But you all had sort of a seed of change. I'm curious, because there are multiple opportunities, I guess, for change to occur. Why that seed? Or why that specific moment was it a turning point in each of your individual stories? What was the significance of the specific moment that helped, put you on a path where you felt you were moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I never had nobody outside of my family like it felt that way for a long time, that nobody outside of my family was able to ever recognize anything in me that was positive. Right. So the seed of change was planted for me because I was around a community of people that allowed all parts to exist. Right. So they allowed the this version of who I became. So there was the rough around the edges, but there was also this person seeking something different. And I had space for that. And that space, there was also, I tell anyone I work with nowadays, if you really have reservations, this whole half a measure value nothing. No, they do. They like half measures show us something. It gives us, and that was a clue for me, as like the recognition that there is a different way of life. And that's why I say the seed of change was planted, because it was the first time I recognized that, oh, what I'm doing is a choice. And that is a difficult thing to wrap. For me, it was a difficult thing to wrap my head around, because up until the seed was planted, everything that happened to me, I was a victim of circumstance. Like, you couldn't convince me otherwise.
Mhm.
I think, hi guys, having the panels switch around all the time is like, it's not good for a guy with my brain, friends with my brain. Um, I think my change came when it was my time to change. I had been to and heard everybody's, all the great, the deep emotional reasons why I should change. I wasn't, I'm going to use the term capable in the early days of change. It was through, I mean, my day came when I looked in the mirror and I said, I'm going to die. That there was a shift in that. And in that came, I'm going to say that the willingness probably came before the shift came, but in the willingness, that's where everything began to change for me. And I was open-minded to having, we talk about in AA, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. I had the willingness to be open-minded. Um, and that's when I was able to start hearing what other people had to say. The resources for me were all there, but it came slowly because I'm a guy that's very stubborn and defiant. I don't want anybody to tell me what I should be doing and how I should be doing it. It really came through painful, slow growth. And it was only as I did that painfully and slowly that things began to lift. And in the lifting, there was levels of peace that I hadn't had previous to that. Listen, I still go through stuff in life. I mean, I'm not, contrary to what some people think, I'm not perfect. I'm far from being perfect. But what I do have is I have a life on life's terms today, and understanding that I still have an obligation to put in effort in my life on a day-to-day basis that I was incapable of doing, previous to this. The only difference now is that it's not about drugs and alcohol today.
Right.
It's not about all that stuff, but there are things that can keep me locked up, and I call it my bondage of self. And I personally think that there are 7 areas of life that I have to work on a daily basis. It's physical, emotional, spiritual, financial, sexual, and social, that can tie me up. And and they're all intertwined with each other. When I need, if money is running short, then like my emotions get messed up, and if my emotions are messed up, I don't want to go work, and if I don't want to go work, I don't, it's. But this is life on life's terms, and this is something that I get to do daily, and I'm not in bondage of drugs and alcohol today, which makes a huge difference. It gives me a chance that I didn't have, gives me a shot that I didn't have, before that. So I
I
hope I
think
answered your question. Sorry.
I think for me, the way in which I grew up and my role in the family, the moment that my father said, "Your brother's a drug addict, and what are you going to do about it?" I felt like, oh, this is like a little puzzle piece falling into place, and I'm going to fix this, right? Because that had been my role in the family. Going to a place where I met other addicts and alcoholics and significant others and began listening to their stories. And as I explained, it started at a Jack's retreat. I mean, I came to that first Jack's retreat. The president of Jack's at that time, he's the founder. His name is David. David always reminds me that I came with a paper bag over my head. I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to tell them where I was from, because all this is going to get back and it's going to ruin my life. And there's nothing wrong with me. And look at this. It's all, tower card. And I had to slowly come to the painful recognition. And as I learned in program, we're as sick as our secrets. I had a lot of secrets. There was a lot of abuse happening in my life, and I was allowing it to happen to me. And I wasn't doing anything to heal myself. And I was just spiraling into, some abyss. I don't know what would have happened to me, but as has been said by many addicts and alcoholics and significant others, God had other plans for me. And so here I am.
There was a question in the chat, and I guess this also applies to anybody. If anyone feels that, or how Jewish prayer, ritual, tradition, holiday, teacher supported their recovery. I know many of you mentioned Tversky, but if you want to expand on any of that.
I'd like to jump in if I may, because all these things really affected me tremendously in my role in recovery. I was the guy who would stand in services, and I have what I call my tear tallis. I have a tallis that had all my tears in it. Anytime I cried, I had my tallis on. I was at services, and I would have my tallis on, and I would cry. And it's also stained. And my ex-wife said to me, "Oh, you can't wear that anymore. It's all dirty." It's not dirty. It had too many tears on it. I think the general answer, I can give you specifics of the stuff that I did, whether it's prayer, meditation, going to prayers on a regular basis, times I do and times that I don't today. Holidays are always a favorite time of mine, especially because I have an opportunity to be with family. I think family makes a huge difference, especially my family. I'm going to say is relatively healthy. They're not perfectly healthy, but they're relatively healthy. And we have an understanding with each other of what everybody's going to do is what works for them. and nobody stands there and tells everybody what they should be doing, which makes a huge difference. These are, the family dynamics that we go through. I don't think that there was any one particular teacher besides Tversky. I spent a tremendous amount of time with him, like days. I actually went down to Pittsburgh at the time, spent I think it was 10 or 12 days with him, and just stuff that he gave me that I absorbed. I mean, on a daily basis, it's back to the same rituals that we talked about before. Uh, whether it's prayer, whether it's meditation, whether it's a serenity prayer, it's a reading, something that keeps me connected. I'm the one that's responsible to keeping myself connected. Nobody's going to do this for me. Nobody will do this for me. Nobody else doing it is going to make a difference for me. I'm the guy that's got to be the guy that does this stuff. And like this morning, I got up and I do daily reflection, and I get this little touch someplace in here. Don't ask me how. I said, "Oh, I did it again today." I counted Omer today, with the blessing between the 49 days between Passover and Shavuos. It was another day that was accomplished. It's another day of connecting, and then I let God take care of the rest of it, because if it was up to me, I'd get disappointed because he doesn't do what I want the way that I want, the way that I want it. But just being able on a day-to-day basis of saying, okay, God, it's your call. And I got to remember that there's a God out there, and that God, that's not me. I'm not God. I'm not God. For years, I'm going to show you how this is going to work. And it doesn't. It just doesn't work. And I tell my guys who I sponsor all the time, is that there's a God out there, and it's not me. And that's the stuff that makes a difference. Being able to let go, being able to, just chill. My sponsor tells me all the time. He says, "Arnie, you're not letting go today." I said, "What do you mean I'm not letting go today?" "Yes, I am. I know exactly what I'm doing." He says, "No, you don't." And then I get to sit and suffer with my own character traits that, again, that keep me locked up in this bondage of self. And that bondage of self it's Arnie being, Arnie's being Arnie. And that's the nature of my disease. And that doesn't necessarily go away, but I can deal with it on a different or on a healthier basis, on a day-to-day basis. So thanks.
Do we just
Um,
jump in, or
yeah,
do you want
please.
to?
And if you want to incorporate the question that just came up about specific holidays that involve drinking alcohol, or I know, Arnie, in your story you mentioned l'chaims. Maybe if you want to anything you want to add to that as well.
But I did want to speak to the idea of like who's helping you, because that's what I'm hearing. They want to know what rabbi or what is helping you. And different things speak to me at different times. And different people are, like I will talk to people from recovery during the course of the week, but depending on how I'm feeling that day, I'm not always checking in with the same person, because I find that life is complicated. There are things that, whatever it is that's bothering me today and just putting me off kilter. And I am often aware of the fact that there, but for the grace of God, go I, because I may be a workaholic. I didn't end up being a rageaholic, an alcoholic, whatever, but there are things that just sort of trip me, and I have to be aware and I have to understand, and it's okay. And these are things that I learned. The people in my circle of recovery friends are my teachers on a regular basis, because when we share what we're doing to get through that day, they'll remind me sometimes of something that works. Like I can just step back and look at what's happening and know this is not going to be permanent. And I just have to figure out how to get through it for today. And that's very helpful to me. Gratitude lists and feeling grateful. I do try to pray every single day. And what I discovered is the Amidah, the silent prayer, where you say the blessings and standing up and so on, that cover just about everything in life. even if I don't pray any other part of the service, if I can sort of get myself focused and pray that, it really touches all the different points of me as me as an individual, me as caring for community, and me as caring as part of the Jewish people. And that helps me stay grounded.
I have a interesting relationship to Judaism. I come in it as an ally, honestly. I found God in temple, and I was raised Catholic. Like I said in my story, and if you hear, um, it's really I was loved an orphan, and like all the principles and values of Judaism that I was learned about by being in a Jewish community, I experienced. So there was something really profound for me coming in as like a recovery in Judaism. They're just, I don't, they're intertwined for me in a really unique way. I mean, such a unique way that I helped co-found a Jewish organization because I believe in the power of community that was given to me through mentorship and just learning, like just the idea of wrestling. This is that's not how I understood God or religion or spirituality in the way that I was taught. So to be able to have that space where um, it's not even about a relationship, it's about there's morality, there's a way of living, certain things that I still utilize. I mean, if you heard my mission statement, that came from the idea of the two notes in the pocket that you should all carry, right? But I believe you should carry a third. I teach that a lot. It's like your personal words, like, yeah, we have these things, one to humble ourselves, and then when we're not feeling that we could take the risk that may be necessary, we have one that can inspire us. But I also think you should have one that connects you to you, right? Connects you to you and your ancestry. And it's what's connected me to mine. Judaism has given me a real earning to want to look back and understand my ancestry. Because I find the timekeeping and the traditions and doing the same thing. I've read the Torah for the first 5 years of my uh recovery, working at Beit Tshuva and being part of the community. And it's profound to read the same books and find something new about myself each and every year. I help run a Torah study, a recovery Torah study every Friday. And there, to me, those are those parts. So it's like um, with the holidays, what we do is we really create space where the alcohol is not necessary. Grape juice is a good substitute. Sometimes it's difficult, but if I know, and this is something when I'm working with somebody, it's only an alcoholic that cares what's in your cup. Nobody else ever in my life since I've been sober, at a bar, at any situation, is like, oh, what are you drinking? Like, I've never had that question asked to me outside of like, a concerned alcoholic. So there's some of that stuff that comes up, and, exploring with your clergy. This is what we work on as our organization, as well as teaching how to create spaces for people in recovery. So having a dry service, or a service where there is an option, where a non-alcoholic option is what we do. For Purim, we turned it on its head. We use joy as celebration. We had an ecstatic dance this year, so we use dancing to intoxicate us. So how do you rewrite it? There's these things that were written, and for me, I'm an outsider, so it might sound like blasphemous, right? Like, oh, how do you rewrite it? That sounds very like you can't always do that. But how do you make sense of it? That's what recovery has afforded me. This where I look at it from that angle too, is recovery has afforded me the rewriting of my history. I promise you, nobody in my life today from a decade ago knows me as an addict, someone that struggles, somebody that it's not dependable. And that's also where I believe the principle of teshuva really holds and dear in my life. It's the way that I heard teshuva being defined is it's meeting the same exact experience and having a different outcome. And the only way to do that is change. So these are things how I apply and what I continue to try to sit and absorb. And being an ally, it really pushes me to sit and learn before I speak and put my foot in my mouth. So that's also how I honor what it means to respect and sit alongside a people that have traditionally been ostracized or ousted and stood besides me because I identify as I'm biracial and I identify as a Black man as well, and sat alongside of a lot of the issues that I had to face and my family had to face in this country. So it's to be an ally, just it makes so much sense for me, and the love that I've seen from the community, that's why I'm outspoken the way I am for the Jewish community, because they didn't have to do anything that they did for me, but they loved me. And the other principle, and I'm sorry if I'm dragging on too long, but it's that if you save one soul, it's as if you save an entire world. Behind me, you guys may not hear, but I get to experience my kids today. I get to be their father. I get to be a husband that doesn't have to run and hide from his wife and can share, because I'm sensitive. Like, if tears need to come, they're going to come down this face. And having a space and having a home and having my world be saved so I have an entire world because of it is something that's been really important to me and provided by the love of strangers.
Thank you, Jeremy. That was beautiful. And also, I'll just add, if anyone has the opportunity to hear Jeremy give a Devar Torah, it's one of the best Divrei Torah you'll ever hear. It's really beautiful.
Can I jump in? Can I jump in on this
Yes, yes,
last?
yes.
By the way, Jeremy, thank you for everything that you mentioned just now. I really, I'm glad get to come online. I get to hear stuff that I haven't heard already. The whole question about the holidays and stuff, and it is a reframing. It's a reframing of what I was brought up thinking that I need to have, alcohol and drugs and what recovery has really given me is to just be able to first off have it without alcohol and drugs. I mean, that's obviously that's part of it. But being able to take a look at my life, and maybe I need to take a look at life differently and act differently, that the message that I get on on the holidays is going to be different. So we just went through Passover, and now we have the holiday this coming week. And Passover we know is from bondage, you're released from bondage. So what is that like without having to drink wine? What was that like for me? What's it been like for how many years? I mean, the joke goes is that one year my sister, may she rest in peace, her mother, it was going to be my how do I even? It was my sister's mother-in-law. So however that fits into my picture, she was over at the house and she made the ritual dish charosas, which is not well, she had alcohol in it, but with apples and nuts and all ground up mixed with wine. And I sit down at the table and everybody knows I'm in recovery, and and I'm sitting there packing in the charosas and I'm having a good time. And I said to my sister, I said, this is really, really good this year. How come it's so good? And 25 people sitting at the table turn around and go, "Oh my God, Bubby made it and it's got full of wine. So what are you going to do?" That was a free high, that's basically what it boiled down to. I think being I just went through Pesach. I went through all the holidays. And when I sit and I spend time in synagogue, or even not in synagogue, it might sound like I come across as being a synagogue Jew, where there are times that I am, there's times that I'm not. But when I take that time and I go in to have meditation and I take that time and I connect to God, something inevitably happens during that holiday that lifts me away from the way that I had been thinking, that I'm no longer thinking like that. So, you're asking a question, what about these holidays? I think they're special. I think the Jewish holidays have phenomenal ability of lifting us in a direction that we need to go. I should change that. My experience is that the holidays have a way of lifting me to a direction that I need to go that I wasn't going prior to that. Even if I was, extremely observant, which I'm not. I go through these ups and downs with it. I suffer the human condition. There's times, okay, I'm going to services. I'm going to go every that day. I'm going to this. And then there's times that I love being in, I love when they sing during services. I really think it's fantastic. And then there's times that leave me alone. But it comes back to me wanting to stay having that connection. That connection for me is very warming. It cuddles something inside of my being that nothing else, even a 30-mile bike ride with a meditation doesn't do sometimes what going to services do. So there's what to be said about it, and it's not for me to judge anybody or what they should do or what they shouldn't do. But I will tell you, when I sit around a table on Passover night, and my kids and my grandkids are there, and we're all together as one, and we're having a great time with it. I have a better time the next morning when I wake up. There's something in me that has changed, that has lifted me, that maybe I'll be able to, hold on to for a couple of days extra that I didn't have the day before.
So I just wanted to say one thing about holidays and family. Some people have the family of, their biological, and then there's the family we choose. And for some people, I don't know who's in the Zoom room, but for some people, they're not going to have that table full with children and grandchildren, and as Arnie mentioned, great grandchildren. But find those people who nurture you, who appreciate you, who give you a space to be yourself, who don't constantly judge you. I have had to reconfigure my life multiple times. Who am I hanging out with now? You know what? Being with that person makes me feel smaller, and then that makes me go back to some of my old behaviors. That's not good for me. I didn't know that before I found recovery. I mean, and that said, I am very grateful when I do get to spend time with my children and my grandchildren, because I know for a fact that I might not have been there if, being so upset, depressed, whatever would have led me to do something stupid because I had thought about it. I might not be here today to enjoy this, or my children might not be who they were if I had not known how to talk to them, let them be who they were, but sort of nurture them along a path that would not be destructive. I wouldn't be sitting, just this past Shabbat, I went to my son in Connecticut, and I got to see him with some of his parishioners, some of whom come to get in their cars and come to his Orthodox synagogue because they've met him somewhere. And he speaks to them in a language they understand and can make them feel comfortable. And someone came up to me and said, and this is where the miracles happen, and this is where God talks to me. Someone came up to me after the service was over and said, I just want you to know how grateful I am to have found this congregation and your son as my rabbi. And what else did he say? I want you to know that at least twice a month when he's giving a sermon, he works something in about something his mother said to him or something his mother did or whatever. And I've learned so much from you about how to be a parent by hearing him tell what it was like for him. And I want to thank you for teaching me how to be a parent. And I was like, what the hell was that? And that was God talking to me through another person. So take a look at the people around you. And whether it's the family, the friends, the people at work, they talk about being toxic, that drugs and alcohol can be toxic. People can too. Take care of yourself, understand what you need, and then take the steps.
Thank you, Chaya.
You brought up, you just made me think
yeah.
of before this, what you talk about is what I called it my family of understanding, right? Like my family of understanding has allowed me this space to return and be and see and understand my family of origin. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that. Sorry, Ari.
No, you're good. I wanted to, first of all, thank you all for answering those questions. They really illuminate a lot of the stories you shared. I'm going to pass it to Carly now, who's just going to end our night together. But thank you all for being a part of this.
I want to just say a huge thank you, and I'm leaving you up here with me for a moment, but a huge thank you to Chaya and Arnie and Jeremy for sharing your stories with us tonight, for being brave, and also for everyone who came and listened and heard these stories. And we're just so grateful to have a space to do this. And I want to say also a huge thank you to everyone who helped organize this event. The teams at Sella and Jax and Be Well. We could not do this work without all of you. We're going to send a follow-up email, which will have a recording of this, some resources, an opportunity to offer feedback on the event, so we can continue to offer events like this in the future. And as we come to our close tonight, Chaya, I was wondering if I could share my screen, and could you lead us in the Shema and the Serenity Prayer this evening to close out our time together?
So as we have a Jack's 12-step meeting online, and as I often say, we have a beautiful way of closing, and I'm going to try to wait. Let me just minimize so I can see that. Okay. So we say the first line of Shema, which is considered the holiest line. It's a central idea in Judaism. And we say the first line of that prayer, both in Hebrew and in English, and we follow it with the Serenity Prayer. And so what we usually do is we just pause for a moment and we think about what we're grateful for, and we pray for those sick and suffering, both in and out of the rooms. And then I will start. What I should tell you about the Zoom universe is that if you are unmuted, I'm going to say it slowly enough so that we can hear a couple of voices, but I don't know what the hostess is going to do here, whether she's going to let people unmute or not. But let's just pause for a moment and then we will close. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.